welcome to Full Sail Live. I'm your host, Paul Liacos, and today we have a very special guest with us for our listeners. We have Mia O'Brien, sports anchor and reporter for First Coast News in Jacksonville, Florida. Mia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Great to see you, and we'll jump right into it. The sports world as we know it has been almost flipped upside down over the past several months due to COVID-19. How have you, as an anchor and reporter, had to adjust in the way you cover sports over the past few months?
Oof. Yeah, a lot of ways. Aside from having to anchor from my bedroom? Aside from the obvious? No.
Exactly.
I think sports actually, as much as the games themselves were taken away, Paul, I think that the nature of what we do as sports reporters is storytelling,
Yes.
and that will never go away. And so I think it really forced a lot of us to get back to the elementary understanding of finding characters and telling stories, because that is something that, pandemic or not, that's what keeps us all going, is that shared experience. And so for me, I would say it was a lot more, obviously not covering games and talking about X's and O's and analyzation, as it was identifying characters that, for better or worse, because of the way that the news works in local news, that were somehow affected by COVID-19, whether that was actually contracting the virus or having it cancel their season or something like that. And telling those character stories, I think that's really the bread and butter of what the last 5 months have been.
Exactly. Well, that leads us into, luckily, we do seem to be getting our sports back here. Obviously, we saw sports come back last week with baseball coming back. Basketball's returning tonight. College football's announcing it looks like they're going to try and have a season. Same with the NFL. They're reporting for camp. Fingers crossed, correct? What sport are you most excited about coming back, and what is some of the big storylines you're excited about as we sit here currently with sports starting to return?
I will say this, I know it shocks most people because they assume working in major fall markets for the almost entirety of my career, albeit at different levels of football, that I would be most excited for football. The truth of the matter is I got into this business because I love the New York Yankees and I love baseball. And so there's something magical and mystifying about seeing, having them back. As much as, yes, it stinks there's no fans in the stands, and my father will tell me baseball is more boring than ever. At the same time, I don't know, man. I just love having it on. And the 2 days in which, because the Marlins and the Phillies were both quarantined, the Yankees couldn't go to Philadelphia. They hadn't decided they were going to play in Baltimore. I was hurting those 2 days, and I put on a White Sox Indians game just because, well, number one, I wanted to see what the White Sox were about. Number two, just because I was like, I need something. And it's so funny because at that point we had only had baseball back for 3 or 4 days. Already I was like, nope, I still need it. You already gave it to me. The toothpaste is out of the tube. We can't put it back in now. And I think that truly is going to be a big hurdle. Once you start, if you do have to stop, what do you do?
Exactly. Yeah. No, absolutely. And, as we've seen, the big story this week was obviously the Miami Marlins having 17 positive tests among their players and staffers. Obviously, resulting in calls to cancel the season, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, but it is unfortunate. What would be how optimistic are you that sports like baseball, college football, and the NFL can survive in a scenario where they're not playing in a bubble like the NBA or the NHL are?
So my thing to that has always been in the last, and by always, of course, I mean in the last 2 months, because we've only been dealing with this for 6 months, which we need to keep in perspective. I have to remind myself that sometimes. The English Premier League, the Bundesliga, they were traveling in their so-called virtual bubbles of sorts, where the bubble was the stadium, the player's respective home, the bus, the plane, whatever it is that gets them from one to the other, and then the hotels where they are provided food and shelter and what have you. And in bubbling all those things, you can still have a bubble. That's the premise that they went off of with European soccer. That's the premise they're going with Major League Baseball. As we have seen largely outside of the Miami Marlins and now the two cases in Philadelphia, if they're not to players, if you can securely have the infrastructure that allows for a pseudo bubble, then you can be okay. We saw it in Europe. I bring up Europe, of course, knowing that Europe's numbers are much better than ours here in coronavirus cases.
Moving on, as Florida, where you reside, as you know, has unfortunately been a trouble spot for COVID cases recently. I know you cover the Jacksonville Jaguars closely there for First Coast News. What insight can you give on how players and members of the organization there in Jacksonville are feeling regarding the NFL returning, especially in a place like Florida? It's a hot spot for cases currently.
Yeah, I think we spoke with Doug Marone this morning for the first time since, and that sidebar, I kept having to remind myself these last 7 weeks. It was normal that we weren't talking to Doug, that we weren't talking to the Jaguars, because this is the traditional time where the NFL has its 7-week shutdown period. Everyone goes home and relaxes for the long haul. He sounded very optimistic, but very cautious at the same time this morning. That would be my takeaway. I think for him, he loves talking to us. He's from New York. He's from the Bronx.
He's great.
He's a Northeasterner. He loves face-to-face interaction. And so you could tell for him it was weird because he's talking to us on a monitor. Like he has a couple monitors with all of our faces on it, and that's how he's doing his press conference. So I could tell that was eating at him, but he stressed that the biggest thing is if we are on top of every little detail of how we are managing our day, we can have this season. That's what the science says. If you can manage it, you can have it.
Staying with the Jags, obviously, disappointing season last year for them. What improvements do you think they've made this offseason that will make an impact right away?
Definitely on the offensive side of the ball. I was talking to another member of the Jaguar media 2 days ago, and I said to him, we need a season because I want to see Laviska Shenault, the second-round pick out of Colorado, who by many accounts, if he had not had the abdominal injury he did at the end of this past college football season, his junior year, he would have been a first-round pick, top 10 pick. Even Dave Caldwell, general manager of the Jaguars, said that if Laviska had been able to come out as a sophomore, he would have been on their top 10 overall last year. So I think he is going to be exciting. You pair him with DJ Chark, who's truly coming into his own. I know a lot of Jags fans hoping for that. I think those two are going to be exciting. People are very excited about the tight end position, which I know is always a sore spot in this neck of the woods because they never can have one outside of Mercedes Lewis. But I do, from what I've heard from one of the guys that we work with in TV and radio, who also happens to be a trainer, and so he personally trains Josh Dobbs, and so they've had all those guys in his building, and he's been impressed. And so I think the big step, that's what I'm most excited for, is these weapons. They did go out, they bought Gardner Minshew weapons. They got him his weapons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
I think that's exciting. I think the big question mark, and the defense is a question mark in its own entire separate story. But on offense, I think the biggest question mark will be with Jay Gruden as your play caller and your first-year offensive coordinator. How does he pair his offensive scheme with not only Gardner Minshew's strengths, because I think that's going to be a match.
I agree. I know we mentioned I know you're a big Gardner Minshew supporter and imitator at times, particularly when it comes to his stash and jorts, right? Yesterday, I got to see a video of him arriving to camp with some serious flow going on. Does that get you excited about possible Minshew makeovers that might be easier to pull off this season? Did you
watch my
I did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hopefully you listened to my mixtape of the video. Yes. No, to be quite honest, my mother's the big fan of the Minshew look. I just love the underdog mentality. I mean, and I've talked to him and his family about this. Albeit my own athletic career ending before I got to college. That same chip on your shoulder, they're constantly benching you, but then you come back mentality. I lived that for the first 18 years of my life. And so that combined with his relationship with his parents is very similar to mine. And so that's where I am a big supporter of that, of the Minshews in the family. But no, my mom was very concerned about the hair. She was very concerned. She was like, what happened? He looks so different. And I'm like, he grew his hair out. It's long. Like, why? And I was like, I don't
Quarantine,
know. He was bored. I mean, I can tell you this. I talked to him. We did a Zoom with him. We did one in May. and it was not that long. It was long. It was curly long. So he's applying some sort of conditioner because it was way earlier in May. But when I talked to him in June, and he definitely had a haircut. So, you know, I want to know who does his skincare and his hair care. And his dad's got the fluffy hair going too. So I want to know what's in the water in Mississippi. I think that might, he was back home for quarantine, so that would have contributed to it.
Well, yeah, he definitely has great flow. I will give him that. And then, just to follow up on that a little bit, what do you expect to see out of him going in this year as a starter? You know, obviously there was some very, bright spots last year with him, so, at points he did struggle. Obviously it was to be expected as a rookie, but I would say overall you exceeded expectations. What are your thoughts with him going into this second year?
Not only a rookie, a 6th-round rookie.
Exactly.
The thing that kills me is if this guy was a first-rounder and you looked at his stats, he would have been the runaway winner of the AFC Rookie of the Year. But, moreover, I mean, his stats, by all accounts, were better than Kyler Murray's. I think the only question mark for Gardner, I mean, there's going to be a lot. It's his second year. This is really, as much as it's his second year, it's really the make or break year because whether you're Drew Brees or Russell Wilson, which are the two comparisons that he most often gets if things are to go well this year, both of them, their second year, or in Brees' case, his first year in New Orleans, no one was anointing them as two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. At that point in time, we really didn't know what we were going to get out of them. Two undersized quarterbacks who could move, but they weren't Michael Vick moving. So, what were you? And so I think that this really is a pivotal year, and he knows that. One thing that I find fascinating is every time you talk to anyone on that team, James O'Shaughnessy, tight end, coming off ACL surgery, he was on the radio last week talking to DJ Chark, talking to Josh Allen on the defensive side of the ball. The first thing they say is Gardner Minshew is the best leader I have ever been around, and I can't wait for what year 2 is going to bring. And I personally can't believe if that many guys are saying it, that it's lip service.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mia. We really appreciate it. And, we wish you all the best with moving forward, obviously, with this football season. And we hope you stay safe down there in Florida for the time being. And we hope to have you back on the show again soon, okay?
Thanks, you too.